Go grab your energy bill. How much has it gone up in the past month? How much has it gone up in the past year? What about the past 5 years? In Illinois, we've got growing energy prices across the state, and it's something that's not just impacting you as a residential customer, it's impacting you as a small business and large businesses alike. And something I think that is getting more and more frustrating for people, as even in the live chat, you've got people talking about, why are my energy prices going up so much? All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can wake up with us each and every weekday morning. And don't forget to get the headlines in your inbox. Go to thecentersquare.com, click newsletter, and you'll be able to sound off in the live chat when you join us each and every weekday morning. But at thecentersquare.com, you'll see the story with the headline, Legislators Urge Return to Capitol to Deal with Increasing Illinois Energy Costs. Got this ongoing issue, and what's behind it, right? We've heard from Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about, the increased energy prices is because of the PJM, which is a energy grid manager of sorts for all of these different energy producers and getting them online and having the grid work together. PJM is for the northern part of Illinois and a whole bunch of other states, and I believe including the District of Columbia. But you have MISO, which is the southern part of Illinois, and wrapping in some other areas and jurisdictions for their energy grid system. Plus, you've got Commonwealth Edison, ComEd, and Ameren, Illinois, two different energy suppliers providing energy for different parts of the state. And both Ameren and PJM have recently announced that they're going to see rate increases. And in particular, you've got a group called Energy Professionals. They reported that ComEd's rates increased 53%, and Ameren, Illinois' rates increased 47%. It's a big increase, and it's impacting a lot of people. Again, not just residences, but even individuals like business owners. And here we've got a small business owner that was joined by Republican state representatives. Ryan Garrett, he is the owner of Embarrass. It's a bar and grill in Villa Grove, and he said that he got a $1,000 increase in 1 month's time, going from about $2,000 to $3,000 for his energy bill.
Yeah, you get a $3,000 bill when you're not really expecting it. It raises your costs. 1 month or $1,000 in a month. You can't budget for that. You can't plan for that, and then it has a trickle-down effect. We're at the point where we've had to cut back on hours of some of our employees and take up those hours ourselves because we can't. Keep up with payroll to pay that stuff, and it seems like it always trickles down to the little guy, like us.
Governor Pritzker has said again, the grid operators are the ones that are to blame because they're not putting on wind and solar energy generation to the grid quick enough. And Pritzker also blames President Donald Trump for steering the federal government away from subsidizing wind and solar. But the governor hasn't necessarily recognized the impacts of his Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, CEJA, which led towards the potential closure of coal-fired power plants. And while these coal-fired power plants may not have closed yet, they have until 2035 and 2040, depending on the status of it, if it's municipally owned or not, and so on. But just the fact that there's that hard deadline that they have to close it means they're not going to be investing in those anymore, so they may even close before then. You've also got the conversation about nuclear in Illinois. While we did lift the moratorium on small modular reactors, those are still years away from completion, and there is talk about lifting the nuclear moratorium even further to allow for similarly sized nuke facilities that Illinois has now. That moratorium was put in place back, in the 90s or something. Illinois has the most nuclear facilities in the country, but there was apparently a movement back then. I wasn't following the State House back then, but the ideas and the concerns about nuclear energy, and people saying that the waste is just too devastating, and they also might point to meltdowns like Chernobyl or something to that effect. But regardless, the governor doesn't seem to want to recognize that the efforts he's put underway over the past few years have really hit Illinois' energy availability and reliability. Republican State Representative Brad Halbrook says that it is indeed these green energy policies that are driving up costs.
The very communities the governor and his allies claim to help have been abandoned. Under CEJA and its predecessor, FEJA, the Future Energy Jobs Act of 2016, Illinois has been shutting down affordable, reliable coal and natural gas plants, sources that actually work and are critical to grid stability. But why? To appease the climate alarmists who think we can power Illinois with windmills and wishful thinking.
Windmills and wishful thinking, Halbrook says, is what Pritzker is looking to power small businesses and residents alike. State Representative Chris Miller, the Republican from Oakland, he said, listen, this whole green energy issue needs to be done away with, especially as Illinois has a vast amount of resources right underneath our feet.
We have over 200 billion tons of big, beautiful coal available. All we have to do is go get it. And, and it would be a tremendous driver for jobs and opportunity. This whole CEJA thing, this whole green energy scam needs to be thrown in the garbage where it belongs.
They're calling for people to come back to Springfield to deal with high energy costs. But it's not just them calling for legislators to come back to Springfield for high energy costs. You've also got organizations like the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition that puts the blame on increased energy prices on the Trump administration. They're saying that the state needs to come back to deal with giving more subsidies to these types of clean energy, so-called green energy, wind and solar and battery facilities. They say as new federal policies make our power dirtier and more expensive, it's crucial that Illinois lawmakers can step up to the plate this fall session and pass the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act to protect families from utility bill spikes, preserve and grow our clean energy workforce, and maintain our national leadership on climate action. So people are calling for the legislators to come back to deal with energy prices, but I guess it depends on what exactly that solution is going to look like.
If we do this, it's going to make anything that we do in Illinois likely more costly than what other states is going to be required in other states. We will again be putting ourselves at a competitive disadvantage with other states solely because of possible concern of what the current administration might do.
That's State Representative Dan Ugasti on the House floor here in Illinois concerning a bill that's now on the governor's desk that the small business community says needs to be vetoed. Welcome back, Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. So you've got hundreds of bills on the governor's desk. He's been having bill signing ceremonies for some. He's been announcing out of his office that dozens of others have been signed. The other day we went through some of the 124 bills that he announced were signed the week before. He's got a bill signing ceremony today at his ceremonial office at the state capitol here in Springfield. It's a bill concerning law enforcement, background checks, and ensuring that what happened with the shooting death of Sonia Massey at the hands of a sheriff's deputy in Springfield, a sheriff's deputy who had a checkered past but still was hired on. So we're going to hear a lot about that later on today with another bill the governor is going to sign. But again, he's got hundreds more bills on his desk that we're fully anticipating to be signed throughout the weeks ahead. Could this be one of them? The measure is a measure concerning workplace safety requirements and the juxtaposition between Illinois law conforming with federal law for workplace safety. Back when the bill was brought up and passed in the Illinois House, State Representative Marcus Evans explained what the bill does.
State agencies are prohibited from amending or revising workplace rules to be less stringent than those established under the Federal Wage and Hour Law or Federal Coal Mine Safety Act as of April 28 of this year. State agencies retain the authority to establish more stringent requirements than federal standards to enhance workers' rights and safety. In 2022, Illinois voters ratified the Workers' Rights Amendment and established that every worker in the state of Illinois has the right to a safe workplace under the Bill of Rights of the Illinois Constitution. Senate Bill 1976 protects that right by ensuring worker safety is not diminished. State agencies must use the authority under state and federal law to implement and enforce the act. State agencies are required to submit an annual report to the General Assembly detailing their compliance with the act.
The question here is what exactly this does. And it looks like Democrats are trying to protect the level of regulation that Illinois imposes on businesses if the federal government under the Trump administration starts rolling back some of those regulations, and that could make things disparate between the state of Illinois and neighboring states that may go along with the relaxation of federal work requirements for workplace safety and a variety of other things. So what does this mean for small businesses? I connected with Noah Finley. He is with the National Federation of Independent Business. He's the Illinois State Director, and he has serious concerns he's hearing from small businesses across the state about this particular measure on the governor's desk.
Yeah, so Senate Bill 1976 is a bill that's it's an unwarranted expansion of workplace liability and red tape. As you know, Greg, as I'm sure most of your listeners know, Illinois small businesses need regulatory relief, not more red tape, not more lawsuits. And this bill goes in the opposite direction. I was just up in the Quad Cities a couple weeks ago, meeting with small business owners from both sides of the river, Iowa and Illinois. And a common theme I heard is that it's much harder to do business in Illinois due to the administrative and regulatory environment here. And this bill will double down on that because as small businesses in Iowa, in Missouri, and all across this country get regulatory relief from Washington from some of these cumbersome red tape, Illinois small businesses will not receive that. And that will put us further at a disadvantage to grow our local economies and our Main Street businesses.
So Finley talking about how if the state continues keeping what he says are burdensome regulations on businesses while other states are dropping them because the federal government's relaxing things, it'll make things more difficult and more expensive in the state of Illinois, in a state that's already more expensive and difficult than other states, including neighboring states. Finley says that the National Federation of Independent Business is looking for the governor to veto this measure, but it does have a lot of support and may have a veto-proof majority at the State House, even if the governor was to veto it.
Yeah, I mean, it passed with large margins. It was pushed by a lot of special interests, powerful special interests, and that, so it did pass with large majorities, but that's no reason to not put a stop to bad policy. Because this bill, like I mentioned, it will create regulatory disparity between Illinois small businesses and businesses across this country. So our small businesses will be facing greater regulatory burden. It will also create additional confusion for them because now there's additional layers of trying to figure out how these varying federal and state regulations apply. So they're going to have to figure that out. And mind you, like these small businesses, they don't have legal compliance teams. They don't have HR professionals. So it's going to be an extra burden on them. And then a third component, which is highly problematic, is that this bill creates an opportunity for so-called interested parties to bring lawsuits against employers. And they don't have to be representing employees at that business. They can just bring lawsuits. So it's setting the table for bad faith actors to bring shakedown lawsuits against small businesses. For alleging that they violated some law. And even if the small business did nothing wrong, just risk management and cost containment will probably force many of those small businesses to settle and pay up to these bad faith actors.
And this is Noah Finley. He is with the National Federation of Independent Business. And I asked him about the impacts this will have on Illinois businesses, considering neighboring states are already some say greener pastures.
And that's a real challenge. And I think having talked to a lot of small businesses, business owners, there's a realization that in a state like Illinois, it's really hard to comply with all the mandates out there. There are just so many. And to start a business in this state, you probably have to be comfortable with maybe falling afoul of some of those laws and taking a risk. And that's problematic. That's not a position we should put our small businesses in, that they have to take risk of breaking some law that they know nothing about.
When it comes to the economic impacts, you've got the state of Illinois regularly lagging the national average for things like unemployment rate and GDP growth, and how that has just been a regular occurrence in the state of Illinois. I mean, even after the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009, it took Illinois a decade to get back to pre-recession levels. COVID-19 pandemic. The economic impact of that. It took Illinois more time than other states to get back to pre-COVID-19 economic restraints and the level of economic activity. Noah says that, listen, Illinois regularly lags the rest of the nation, and it should not be adding more burdens onto small businesses while other states are looking to possibly relax those burdens.
Well, I think we can look at the track record that Illinois GDP growth and job growth, population growth have trailed the national average. And that track record speaks to itself that we're not on the right trajectory. Right now, we're seeing a lot of developing countries, France, Britain, we're seeing regulatory relief coming out from Washington, but Illinois is moving in the opposite direction. So I would say we're moving the wrong direction on really making Illinois viable, making it possible for small businesses to compete in the global economy.
And then some final words from Noah from the National Federation of Independent Business talking about this bill that they want the governor to veto, but not sure if that's going to happen or not. And just anticipating the negative impacts they say are going to be hitting businesses.
I think this is just a story of we need to empower our small businesses to hire people, to grow, to take risks. And by increasing liability, by increasing red tape, we're doing none of that. This is not the direction we need to go for Illinois if we want to create a prosperous future for our small towns and main streets across the state.
We'll watch and see what happens. Is the governor going to sign this bill, or will he do an amendatory veto, or will he veto it outright? Either way, we'll obviously be watching as the governor's pen will still be busy this summer. And we've got veto session scheduled for 2 weeks in October. The governor actually did do an amendatory veto on one measure, so they are going to have to address that. But will he veto anything else out of the 450 bills that he is working through, hundreds of which he's already signed? Let's keep you posted. The war of words between Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and President Donald Trump continues after Johnson was called incompetent by Trump, and the idea of sending in National Guard to help with crime in the city. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Go to thecentersquare.com where you can sign up for the newsletter and get these headlines and more. But you need to obviously read some of these stories here, like the story that Jim Talamonte put together yesterday. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says he and Governor J.B. Pritzker are on the same page about President Donald Trump not having authority to send National Guard troops to the city. So let's hear a little bit again, flashing back to Monday. President Donald Trump took a podium over at Washington, D.C., saying that he's taken over the police functions in Washington, D.C. because of the rampant crime there, even though some people are saying that Trump is doing this unnecessarily because crime's down in Washington, D.C. But regardless, Trump...
But then I'm going to look at New York.
He doesn't want the ongoing headlines of, government staffers getting beat nearly half to death, or carjackings, or shootings and the graffiti and such. So he announced that he's taken over the policing efforts in Washington, D.C. He also said that he's looking at possibly getting National Guard involved in other cities and states, like, for instance, in Los Angeles and New York City, and even in the city of Chicago. Here's President Trump from Monday.
But then I'm going to look at New York in a little while. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's see. It's going to go pretty quickly. And if we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, which is a disaster. We have a mayor there who's totally incompetent. He's an incompetent man.
So he's an incompetent man, Trump said of Brandon Johnson. He then went on to talk about how he believes that J.B. Pritzker's incompetent as well, and we reviewed that yesterday. But Johnson held a news conference yesterday, and he was asked about this particular spat back and forth between he and President Donald Trump.
In Chicago, 7th graders have to pass the Constitution. I taught it. This president could use a 7th grade class right now to understand the basics of the Constitution. And so it's incumbent upon all of us as we literally watch this man shred the Constitution in front of us, taking not only a tyrannical approach, an authoritarianism approach towards governance, is doing it with no resistance from his own party. And I'm grateful that there are Democrats around the country and even reasonable Republicans who recognize that he is a threat to our democracy. You all have heard me speak of this before. I've said this for the last couple of years. The extreme right in this country wants a rematch of the Civil War. His own mentor, President Andrew Jackson, is how he is modeling his behavior. The Trail of Tears, right? Snatching people off of their land. A war on poor people. He is one of the biggest threats to humanity that we've seen in an entire generation.
So Johnson not mincing words there and how he feels about President Donald Trump, but Johnson was also asked just about the practicality of the statements that Trump made and the actions that Trump is threatening to do by getting the National Guard involved in combating crime in the city of Chicago.
The president has powers to take over the Metro Police Force in D.C. Does not have that power here, but could, under the Insurrection Act, send in the National Guard into the city of Chicago. The president was, he called you an incompetent man yesterday. He said the same thing about the governor. Talk about your feelings on what the president had to say about crime rates in D.C., in Chicago, how that doesn't necessarily jive with the numbers that we're getting from the police forces from both cities, and your thoughts on the president using the Insurrection Act as a catalyst to bring in the National Guard into the streets of Chicago.
Well, it's clear that the President of the United States of America is very much interested in insurrections. He led one. And I remember a time in which we had presidents who declared war on poverty. This president has declared war on poor people. And he's doing it by way of taking away, Medicaid, taking away SNAP, literally taking away food.
So you got this line that the Democrats continue to use about, Trump, and you're going to hear this a lot today, too, as well, because it's Democrat Day, it's Governor's Day at the Illinois State Fair. So all of the leading Democrats, from Governor J.B. Pritzker to Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, Speaker Welch, Senate President Harmon, members of Congress, members of the State House, they're all surely going to be talking about the so-called Big Beautiful Bill that looks to curb waste, fraud, and abuse in social net programs, like social safety net programs like Medicaid and like food subsidies, to ensure that people who are able-bodied are able to prove that they're out looking for work and either working 20 hours or such so that they can get those types of benefits. But you'll hear the Democrats say that they're taking these subsidies away from the poor people. They're taking these health benefits away from poor people. Is that going to sustain? Is that going to give the Democrats the level of support they're looking for to take back Congress? I guess we'll have to wait and see how it comes out in the wash by November of 2026, but that's the attack line we're going to continue to hear over and over again. But back to public safety. You've got Johnson talking about public safety and how the federal government might get involved or not get involved.
What's your answer to your neighbors who have been, a neighbor of yours was shot in the back multiple?
Yeah, and so we are addressing community safety. That's my top priority, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Lynn.
All right.
We're going to go to Justin here.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're the one.
Thank you.
Let's move on, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
who is not keeping the people of Chicago safe.
All right, we're going to go to the next question. Thanks.
What do you say to Donald Trump? How did you feel when Donald Trump called you in Compton? What did you feel?
All right, he just addressed this. Thanks.
Please answer that question, if you would.
Okay, fine. Since you are begging, I do believe that Donald Trump is intimidated. I think you're
Okay,
begging.
no interruption.
So let me just answer that. I do appreciate you begging. So I will just say it like this.
By the way, that's independent Chicago reporter William Kelly asking those questions of Brandon Johnson yesterday.
That the president has always been intimidated by the intellectual prowess of black men. And so, of course, he would speak in those petite and puerile terms because he's small.
Thanks.
Right.
Here's Justin.
War of words continuing. It's going to give us plenty to talk about all the way through the November 2026 election and beyond. Deep fried politics at the Illinois State Fair for Governor's Day. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, where you can get headlines at thecentersquare.com. Just sign up for the newsletter and get those in your inbox. But wake up with us here for Illinois in Focus each and every weekday morning. Today's Republican Day at the Illinois State Fair. So tomorrow we'll have a lot more to have with the political debates back and forth. But yesterday, Wednesday, was Governor's Day, also known as Democrat Day at the Illinois State Fair, where the Democratic County Chairs Association held a breakfast at the Bank of Springfield Center here in Springfield. Big turnout, always a big turnout outside the Illinois State Fair for that breakfast. A lot of speeches given, and they had a keynote speech from New York U.S. Representative Hakeem Jeffries, who's the leader of the Democrats in the U.S. House as the minority party. But here in Illinois, Democrats are the majority party, and Governor J.B. Pritzker shared some comments with the crowd that was gathered at the Bank of Springfield Center yesterday.
Since the dawn of the Republic, political parties have won and lost elections and then won again, and that's what's going to happen to us in 2026. And what I'll say to those who are wondering what's next for the Democratic Party is this. She's alive and well and stronger than ever, and right here living in the great state of Illinois.
And the governor obviously has his rally speech where he says, are you ready for the fight? Are you ready for the fight? Let's go get them. Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton also speaking to the breakfast, and she's got several contenders up against her in her bid for U.S. Senate. We'll have to delve a lot more into that in future episodes later on, either Friday or sometime next week. By the way, just a quick programming note. I am off Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week, just to give you guys a heads up. So no live show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. So got to take a little bit of a breather here and there, right? Anyways, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, she's running for U.S. Senate to take Dick Durbin's seat, who's retiring after his term, and she also took to the podium in front of Democrats and gave this message.
In the midst of the chaos that's coming out of Washington these past several months, how many of you have said these words? I'm so glad I live in Illinois. It is why the country looks at us as an example, because Illinois is the blueprint. We've protected women's reproductive rights. We've banned assault weapons. We passed the Workers' Rights Amendment, and we enacted nation-leading climate legislation to put us on a path to a clean energy future.
And as I said earlier, Hakeem Jeffries was their keynote during the breakfast, and of course he took aim at Donald Trump and Republicans.
Donald Trump promised that they would lower costs, in fact, on day one. But here in America, costs haven't gone down, costs have gone up. Inflation is on the way up. Job creation is coming down. They have failed to keep their core promise of making life more affordable for the American people while they enrich their billionaire donors. As Democrats, we understand that it's time to build an affordable economy. We have to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America, and we need to do it now.
It seems, though, that there's not much recognition from Democrats about the high cost of living during the Biden administration, where inflation, especially for energy, was like 60% in some quarters of an increase, and just the compounding effect of inflation during the Biden administration. Didn't really hear too much about that until now. We're 6-7 months into the Trump administration, and if you remember the first few weeks, and the president talks about this all the time, he's like, they went after me about the price of eggs, and he was only in office for like a week. So the economic picture, obviously fingers are going to go pointing all over the place on these things, but at the rally at the state fairgrounds, we hear again from Governor J.B. Pritzker delivering his message to the party faithful.
We Democrats, we built Medicaid. We built Medicare. We built Social Security. It's Democrats that passed the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. We're Democrats because of those things, and we have to defend those things. The Republicans are trying to damage all of that. Republicans have raised tariff taxes on the average American family by $2,400 each.
Now, Governor Pritzker himself, having been governor since 2019, has increased taxes on Illinoisans. Everything from the gas tax doubling in 2019 to the additional increase each year tied to inflation, to tax increases on tobacco, tax increases on video gambling, and also sports betting, taxes on this, taxes. I mean, if you look at the chart of all the taxes that Governor J.B. Pritzker has implemented in his time, are Republicans going to talk about that today? We'll see. Obviously, it's going to be Republican Day today, so we'll get the response tomorrow of what Republicans have to say to Democrats. But the governor obviously running for a third term, but he's been asked time and again about running for president, and that's going to dog him throughout the 2026 election if he's going to run. But he was also asked about the map making process, because that's been a huge national debate, right? You got Texas Democrats that fled the Texas House of Representatives to a state like Illinois so that they would break a quorum, trying to block the votes on a new congressional map for Texas that's expected to give Republicans in Congress 5 more seats. You've got Democrats across the country, including Pritzker in Illinois, California Governor Gavin Newsom, Kathy Hochul in New York, all saying that they need to, quote, fight fire with fire. But what does that mean for a state like Illinois when it comes to congressional maps, with a map that's heavily gerrymandered, right? I mean, it's something that I don't know if you can really gerrymander it anymore. The governor, though, he says that, listen, I mean, the gerrymandering that they did in Illinois, he says it's legal. He also said it was drawn by kindergartners on what was that? Colbert? Almost said Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, I don't watch late night TV, so I get them all confused anyways. But you've got the governor saying, the problem here is that it's a mid-decade change of the congressional maps, which he says breaks the rules, but I don't think there are any rules against that.
Well, as I've said, everything is on the table, and we've already taken a first big step, which is to protect those Texas House Democrats coming here to Illinois so that they can, if they choose, to break quorum. We want to help them because they're helping not just Texas. They're not just helping the Texas congresspeople. They're also helping voters all across the United States to make sure that they are represented. The Texas Republicans are violating the Voting Rights Act, and they're trying to break the rules and cheat in the middle of a process. This is now halfway into a decade. That is not when you redistrict. They're only doing that for one reason, because they're licking the boots of the President of the United States, who asked them to break the rules and deliver to him seats that he's ineligible for.
Again, I don't know if there's like an actual rule somewhere that says states can't redistrict. I think that they just have to redistrict based off the most recent census. And even President Donald Trump has said he wants a new census to essentially zero out the non-citizens in the country illegally from the numbers, which we'll see if that's something that's even possible. But regardless, you've got the issue of the maps still dominating national politics. if you look at Illinois' congressional maps, and everybody's seen these at this point, most everybody, but I'm just going to, Illinois congressional maps, let's go ahead and pull that up with an image here and see what we could find. That's a decent one. Let's go over here, pull up the congressional maps, kaboom, and voila. I mean, you just look at this congressional map here. You can buy your own. But the 13th district, Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski in the 13th district here. This was lampooned on Colbert show, right? Where Colbert, he pulled a map out, pointed to it, and talked about this looks like a scorpion tail and all the gerrymandering that's gone on. I mean, look at not just the Democrat District 13, but the Republican District 15. I think this is Mary Miller's district. And see how it's like all of this area, but then it just has this little sliver and it connects it to this area. And so obviously the maps are gerrymandered in Illinois. Congresswoman Budzinski ran into her at the fairgrounds yesterday, and I asked her about, she's in this district that's been lampooned nationally, and how is this not gerrymandered?
Well, look, I would say, I do think legally there have been no challenges that have held up on this map, so I think that is an important point. But I do want to just say, it is an incredible honor to represent in this district, the 13th district in central and southern Illinois. That is what I'm focused on, which is how do we make things more affordable? As you know, Greg, there was a report that just came out that consumer prices rose yesterday by 2.7%. I honestly believe that for constituents, what their biggest issue is, how am I helping them with their daily life? And regardless of the district is as it is, and I'm proud to represent from Urbana-Champaign all the way down to East St. Louis and call Springfield my home. I stay focused on the issues that matter within the district I was elected to.
How should Illinois react if Texas does add 5 more Republican seats?
Well, I agree that we have to. I agree that we have to fight fire with fire, and so I think all options are clearly on the table. I think what the president is doing is not unlike what he's done before when he was asking Georgia to find 11,000 votes that he was short in the 2020 presidential election. That was cheating. Doing mid-decade redistricting is also cheating in Texas. He's looking to pick up 5 seats because, quite frankly, the reality is we haven't ever been able to get a budget. He just passed a big, ugly bill that is deeply unpopular with people as it relates to health care and food security. And so he's looking to distract. And sadly, you saw what happened in the District of Columbia where he called in the National Guard. Another big distraction when you recognize the District of Columbia's crime rates are at a 30-year low. I think he's desperate, and I think that's what this looks like in Texas.
And again, not really much indication as to what Illinois will do if they can even try to redistrict to make up, 1 seat? They're going to try to make it 17-0 for Republicans and having all seats for Democrats. How are they going to do this if Illinois is already woefully gerrymandered? But you heard Budzinski there talk about the consumer prices going up. And again, you heard that also from Hakeem Jeffries, but not really much recognition as to the policies that Democrats implemented during the Biden administration and policies implemented by the Pritzker administration on energy when it comes to what kind of energy availability there's going to be. Is it just going to be wind and solar in the future with battery storage, or are we going to see nuclear? But I asked Budzinski about that, and should we say have a different energy policy because energy prices are through the roof?
We need an all-of-the-above energy approach that includes everything. That includes wind and solar. That includes the Pawnee natural gas plant that we've been trying to get going in the district. When I think about energy, and you rightfully point out, I think people's energy bills within the MISO market with Ameren went up by about 20%. And you have to ask why. A lot of that is because we're not generating energy faster and quick enough. And so I've been a part of conversations that have been largely bipartisan around permitting reform. How do we cut through the red tape to help get some of these energy projects online so we truly have an all-of-the-above energy approach? Bringing on more energy generation is going to bring down costs. And so I think about communities like East St. Louis that want low energy price. All of our communities want low energy prices, but we have to look at this as an all-of-the-above approach, cut through bureaucracy, bureaucracy and red tape and get to building big projects again. I would also say, as the co-chair of the Biofuels Caucus, I very much believe that biofuels, which naturally, obviously, we generate a lot of that because of our corn and soybean in central and southern Illinois. When I say all of the above, I mean biofuels should be a part of that mix. Year-round E15 is something that's going to help people at the pump, bringing down energy prices. So some of the solutions we can find right here in our backyard.
And does that include going back to coal? I mean, you mentioned natural gas.
Yeah, I do think that coal is difficult. We want to be able to reduce carbon emission, but I will just say that as we make the transition to 100% clean energy, which I do believe in, it's going to take us time, and we have to make sure that energy is not just affordable, but it is reliable.
Well, it's obviously not just taking time, it's also increasing costs, as you have PJM even recognizing that it's government policies of, quote, decarbonization that has helped increase prices and hurt availability. So what's next? I mean, can we really rely on wind and solar to power the advancements in the data center creation and the advancements of artificial intelligence, all of the energy draw that takes, electric vehicle push, right? I mean, all of these things are going to add to the strain on the energy sector, causing the energy prices to increase more and more. Well, there's an effort to bring about the end of the nuclear energy moratorium. State Senator Sue Rezin telling the Center Square's Jim Talamonte that her bill would bring about the end of the moratorium altogether. She said that in order to have enough power for the new economy, the AI economy, it's important that we have reliable capacity power available to the lowest cost, which she says is nuclear. I was able to ask Governor J.B. Pritzker about the issue because, listen, and when he's been asked about energy in the past, it seems like he's pointing fingers back and forth. And I asked him, I said, instead of pointing fingers, what are we going to do to lower energy prices?
We've got to make sure that nobody's pointing fingers. We've got to make sure that PJM does the right thing. They've got projects that they are not putting on the grid to provide more energy. We in Illinois can do something very important, which is we can get rid of the moratorium on nuclear, which has been in place for decades now. We already got rid of it on small modular nuclear. We can do that on large nuclear. It's going to be an important part of a transition to renewable energy everywhere and to our 2050 goal of clean energy.
So again, nuclear power, something the governor last year signed the lifting of the small modular nuke ban, but he's saying that now there needs to be a complete lift of the entire moratorium to allow for large-scale nuclear, and Illinois already has the most nuclear facilities in the country, so we'll keep an eye on that. State of Illinois filing their final brief before the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in the ban challenge of Illinois firearm laws. You got Protect Illinois Communities Act that's been challenged, and a district court said it's unconstitutional. Now the state's having to defend that in court, trying to get the courts in the appeals court to reverse the district court's ruling. Welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. We've been tracking this story really since before it even came into law back in January of 2023, and all of the litigation that followed thereafter in the state courts and then in the federal courts. Well, right now, the latest status is you've got the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in the case Barnett et al. V. Raoul and Pritzker in the state of Illinois over the Protect Illinois Communities Act, banning more than 170 different firearms and semi-automatic rifles and handguns and banning magazines and even creating a registry of sorts. So let's get to the latest filing here. And to join me to talk about that is Todd Vandermyde. He is the Aurora Sportsman's Club president. He is also a longtime advocate of the Second Amendment, and he joins us now here on the line. Todd, thanks for taking time. Obviously, we're pulling this document up, so you got a chance to take a look at it. What are some of your initial thoughts?
It's pathetic. If this is what they needed extra time for, I'm amazed as to how thin it is. All they did was they recycled every worn-out argument they've ever made in the past. That they try to play to Judge Easterbrook with, a comment that, this is huge technology leaps therefore they can be banned. Say, kind of citing him from Friedman, where, they said that at the founding there were only single-shot muskets. There weren't semi-automatic rifles, which isn't true. But they just harp on all the same stuff we've seen for the last 2 years. They just spit it out all over again in a different format.
Yeah, and I think at one point they even point to a statistic about the percentage of citizens who own firearms that are banned in the state of Illinois, and it said something about like 0.68% of the Illinois population. Are they basing that off of the registration? Because that's another component of all of this as well that the district court said was unconstitutional.
It looks to be that they're inferring that the only people that own these are people who registered them, not taking into account that people own them and may have moved them out of the state, or just flipped the middle finger to Pritzker and company and said, we don't care what your law is, we're going to hang on to our guns. And we're not registering them, we're not telling you anything more about that or whatever. So obviously you were up at our club recently. You can you saw for your own eyes what kind of stuff transpires out here. I don't think we're 0.6% of the population in the gun owning world.
Todd Vandermyde joins us. He is president of Aurora Sportsman's Club. Also, you can find him on the YouTube channel Freedom's Steel. Just some of the arguments, again, back to what the state's trying to say is that these are dangerous and unusual. Saying they're unusual because only 6.6% of the population in Illinois actually registered a banned firearm with the state. Obviously, as you stated, a lot of recognition that just is not a real number. The compliance rate for that registration requirement, not near what I guess they were anticipating, but you've got the issue of dangerousness, and they say that semi-automatic firearms like an AR-15 has over-penetration concerns. Is that a legit argument here?
No, because what they don't take into account is an AR-15 fires a 5.56 millimeter, or the civilian equivalent is the .223. Yet they say nothing about dozens of models of bolt-action rifles, or even the Mini 14, and its, standard configuration, fires the exact same cartridge. Plus, you have all the big game cartridges going 30-06 on up that carry way more power than a 5.56. They keep trying to conflate this kind of stuff, and it's ridiculous. And if this is the best that they have for their arguments, the other things are that they're trying to play, saying that this panel cannot overrule Beavis, and they're already hinting at an en banc ruling. I think they are hoping at best, that they might win, but I think they maybe resolve to themselves that there could be a split decision or a decision in our favor, because right now everybody is under the assumption that the panel that handled the Beavis motions is going to be our panel, and that was Easterbrook, Diane Wood, and Brennan. And Brennan wrote the dissent, siding with our take on the issue. Wood wrote the opinion. I believe it was ghostwritten by Easterbrook. But Diane Wood has since retired, and so they have substituted for at least up till this point, Judge St. Eve, who is a Trump appointee. Now, she was on the Viramontes case, which went against us 3-0, but it was a thin record in the Viramontes case. There was no trial. Everything that was in the record on the Viramontes case was simply submitted in paper form and, explained away. It's like, competing textbooks.
Well, and touch a little bit more on that, because, that's what distinguishes the Barnett case, that, it's not just Barnett. You got Federal Firearms Licensees of Illinois involved. You've got 4 different plaintiffs groups here. The other cases that they point to, indeed, it was just briefs and just decisions on the briefs. It wasn't, deep, testimony on the stand from expert witnesses like we have in the Barnett case, right?
Correct. And that's what makes our case so unique. There's 7,000 pages of a record with experts filing their depositions and their They're saying those experts being put on the stand and asked questions in front of the judge even asking questions, then those experts being cross-examined by the other side, that all went on. You were down there for 4 days of a bench trial that we were involved in. So, yeah, ours is a little different. There's a growing feeling out there in the 2A legal world that this case is the one the Supremes may want because final judgment, record, they've gone back and forth the whole 9 yards. So we've got that going for us here. The real wild card now is which side is St. Eve going to break on. I mean, if you read the brief, they are weighing, the state is weighing very heavily that this panel cannot overturn a previous panel. But the previous panel was based on an injunction. And they left open the door that, well, you can present evidence and possibly convince us to change our mind. So I think the state is very, very nervous about some things here, about what their possibilities are with a Trump appointee now being on the panel. And it'll be interesting. This will be the first really good test on 2A issues for Judge St. Eve to see where she's going to come down. So the question is there going to be some kind of nuanced, procedural thing that, we can't overturn this, however we would otherwise, or the state's already hinting at going en banc, and that if they lose, it would go, that they would certainly petition the full court for an en banc rehearing of this. I think that no matter what, somebody just needs to get up there in front of the court next month and say, we understand this isn't the last stop for this train, so whatever you do, rule fast, and let's get on with this.
And I think that's something I didn't even think about was them asking for the en banc. And just for quick background for listeners, not necessarily as tuned into the judiciary as say you have been, Todd, and I've been just covering these things, but this is a 3-judge panel of the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. That's how they do their cases. So if it doesn't go the way of a certain litigant, they can then request the entire panel, an en banc panel. So way more than 3 judges. What is it, like 7 judges or something like that would hear
13.
something? 13. All right. So you've got 13 different judges that are going to hear it again. If that was the request and it was granted, how much longer do you think that would slow these things down to get this into the hands of the U.S. Supreme Court?
I don't think we're going to ask for an en banc review if we lose, because we want to get to the Supreme Court. I think if we prevail or it's a split decision, I think they are going to want to at least go en banc and see if they can't eke something else out. I think that if we prevail, I don't think the state wants to go to the Supreme Court. I think their chances at the Supreme Court are very slim, and I think that they would. Remember, when we won the concealed carry case in Shepard and Moore v. Madigan, Lisa Madigan did not appeal that to the United States Supreme Court. And the prevailing thought was that you're the last state with to pass concealed carry. You guys, if you go to the court and think about, Shepard being Bruin 13 years prior, that, we lose the whole country. So I think that if we prevail at the appellate court, I don't think the state wants to go to the Supreme Court, because then if the Supreme Court rules in our favor, they lose the whole country. I think so. There's a mixed bag. There's 4 or 5 different scenarios that can play out here, and we'll see which one it's going to be. But an en banc panel would be all the justices of the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals rehearing it, and it's a crapshoot.
Todd, finally here, just one last response from you about the issue of really what this comes down to, right? I mean, it's essentially the government trying to dictate to the citizenry as to what firearms the government finds to be appropriate for that individual to then be able to protect themselves, their family, and their property. They say that the regulated items are not suitable for self-defense. Where are they wrong?
Well, they're flat out wrong because, those types of firearms are perfectly suitable for self-defense. You've had a number of cases around the country where individuals have used ARs to stop active shooters and, defend themselves, things like that. However, that's the misnomer. That is the lie that the state and the anti-gunners continue to tell. They keep trying to conflate that it's self-defense. Heller said that it protects all lawful uses such as self-defense within the home. They keep trying to write out those two words such as in the first holding of Heller. It is that, if you want to collect AR-15s from every manufacturer because it's like collecting doorknobs, so be it. That is a perfectly lawful use. If you want to use it for competition shooting, fine. You want to use it just to have a real life, Call of Duty run out at the range, fine. Whatever the lawful purpose is good enough. They have consistently, ever since McDonald has come out, tried to undermine Heller and say it has to be self-defense. And that's nowhere near. That is the highest threshold of what is protected activity, but it's not the only protected activity. And this is the lie and the BS that the state, the other anti-gunners continuously try to push out there.
Todd Vandermyde, president of Aurora Sportsman's Club, longtime advocate for the Second Amendment, also known as Gun Santa, and you can find him on YouTube as well with Freedom's Steel. Greatly appreciate your time, Todd, and thanks for jumping on last minute. I texted him at like 6:30 this morning. Hey, they just filed their final brief. You want to talk about it? Sure. He was even getting ready to go do some more bulldozing, so greatly appreciate you taking the time, Todd.
All right, dude. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
You too. All right. We'll talk with Todd again in the near future. Obviously, as we continue to track this case, the oral arguments are set for September 22nd. So that's coming up just around the corner. I believe the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals does stream their oral arguments. So you may be able to just listen to that. But I'm going to do my darndest to get into that room as well so we can give it proper coverage. All right. A lot more to come up on all of that. So if you need to get your hands on that brief, be sure to follow me on X, and I'll try to link it up into the video here, this segment, by the time we get it up after the live show here. But just a reminder, we go live each and every weekday morning with the latest news and analysis here with the Center Square on Illinois in Focus Daily. So be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning. All right, so we've got much more to come, but I do want to also give you guys a little programming note. I'm off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Just got to take those days off where I can find it. It's Illinois in Focus Daily.